This is Kristal High, Editor-in-Chief of Politic365.com, here with FCC Commissioner Mr. Robert McDowell. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on with us. So, there's so much that's going on in the tech realm and the media policy realm, and I think one of the most interesting issues of late is regarding how we address spectrum as an issue. Recently, the Commission had the opportunity to review the AT&T T-Mobile prospective merger, and there were several African American organizations and MMTC who were actually in support of that merger because they thought it would create a lot of good opportunities for people of color. Any thought around, why the merger didn't work for those kind of reasons?
Well, so first of all, a little bit of background. The full commission, there are normally 5 FCC commissioners. We're down to 3 right now, but the full commission didn't actually vote on it. So the Department of Justice back in late August filed a lawsuit to block the merger. Then the staff of the FCC came out with a report saying they didn't think it was a good idea, basically for a variety of reasons, and that's all available at fcc.gov if folks want to read through it. Some of it's a little bit dry, I'll warn you, so if you're awake at night and can't fall asleep, feel free to read it. But so I think they were focused, and I'm not endorsing or not endorsing, but they were focused on concentration of market power issues, what we call antitrust issues. I'm not sure they ever looked to the sort of secondary effects of if AT&T and T-Mobile converged, if they merged, there would have been spectrum that would have been sold off in those markets where there was too much market power, and that might have been a very good opportunity for small businesses, minority and women-owned businesses as well, to have participated, to have been able to acquire some spectrum. So, and that's one of many possibilities that could have helped minority and women-owned businesses. So I don't think they ever reached that conclusion. I sense that, and I was not privy to the negotiations going on between AT&T, T-Mobile, Department of Justice, and the chairman of the FCC's office, but I sense that there were conditions being offered by the companies and the government declining to accept those for whatever reasons that they had, and that's outlined in the FCC staff report on our website.
Great. Now, you've been actually a really strong champion of the interests of minority, women-owned businesses in this space. What do you think are, some of the areas where people could excel, by using technology?
I actually think this is a very exciting time, a very hopeful time for everyone, especially women and minorities, in the communications space. What we're seeing is a big disruption of traditional media with new media. So the barriers to entry are lower than ever to set up a website and have your own content created for that website. And certainly everyone knows about YouTube, but there are just a jillion websites catering to different market segments, what we call a fragmented market, little slivers of the market everywhere. And so if you go back to my childhood, I was born in 1963, so let's say from 63 to 83, there were pretty much just 3 broadcast networks and maybe 3 TV stations, or 4 or 5 maybe if you're lucky in a market, and it took a lot of money, and they were owned by businesses that talked in millions of dollars. Well, when you're talking about setting up a website or creating software, it's a matter of just having access to the computer, and through unlicensed use of spectrum, so whether it's Wi-Fi in a coffee shop or on a campus or someplace else, a shopping mall, that's an ability to get to the internet for free. And I've been a big proponent of using what we call the television white spaces, the unused TV channels in a market, for unlicensed use. That's kind of gummed up with legislation before Congress right now. We hope that they'll resolve it soon so we can get underway. But I think it's a really exciting, hopeful time that, when I got to the commission 5.5 years ago, the term smartphone wasn't invented. And a tablet was what you took your vitamins with, right? And so tablet sales, I read a statistic just the past few days, doubled in terms of the penetration. The number of tablet owners in the U.S. doubled just over the holidays. So apparently there were a lot of, iPads or whatever under Christmas trees, et cetera, over the holidays. But anyway, so my point is, we don't know what's coming over the horizon, and if we can kind of keep this marketplace dynamic and changing and chaotic in a positive and constructive way, I think it's only good for everybody, including women and minorities. And so much power is in the hands in our hands now with mobile devices, and it's very exciting.
So one of the interesting issues you just teed up is kind of the interplay between Congress and the Federal Communications Commission. Huge issue generally, but especially over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, SOPA, PIPA. That very happy intellectual privacy, intellectual property discussion, we'll call it. We'll call it a nice, friendly discussion. Do you foresee the FCC having to deal with the IP issues in a big way going forward?
Thankfully, we really don't have jurisdiction over intellectual property. That was a very hot, contentious debate. For those of you who speak Spanish, SOPA, of course, means soup. This has nothing to do with soup. This is the Stop Online Privacy Act. I think Congress will continue to work on that. The legislation has been withdrawn essentially right now. It's very contentious. I think everyone's in favor of protecting intellectual properties. You know, especially if you're an entrepreneur. Let's say you write a computer program. I mean, you think about Google. Google started out as just a computer program for search, right, in a dorm room, literally. And so that's intellectual property that deserves protection. And we want to, you know, America leads the world in the creation of intellectual property, whether it's movies or content or technology or whatever. And so we want to be able to protect that. We want to make sure that pirates, especially overseas pirates, don't get away with being pirates. But we want to make sure that we're not throwing a baby out with the bathwater, that there's some sort of collateral damage with such legislation. And that I think from some quarters was the concern with SOPA and PIPA, or PIPA, or however you pronounce it.
PIPA, not Middleton.
PIPA, not PIPA, long stock name. But in any case, but to answer your question directly, hopefully the FCC won't have anything to do with that.
Okay. So what are you most looking forward to this year, and what are you least looking forward to in terms of the items that are on your plate?
My number one issue for the year is actually to make sure the UN does not try to regulate the internet. There's a big meeting in Dubai this coming December where 193 countries will come together. It has not gotten a lot of coverage. I'm trying to speak out about it at every opportunity. So that's my number one. What can we stop from happening? I think the internet has proliferated precisely because there aren't any barriers, and certainly there are fewer government barriers there than there are in other areas. There are a number of things we need to do at the FCC. So we're required by Congress every 4 years to re-examine our media ownership rules that govern how many radio and TV stations you can own in a market. Can you own a newspaper and a TV station in the same market? We always work on our diversity items as well. So what can we do to encourage more minority ownership, for instance, of radio and TV stations? We do that all at the same time. So we need to work on that. We're behind schedule on that. We need to get that going. There's also a subsidy program called the Universal Service. We've been working on it in pieces. We have a big vote coming up on January 31st, but we have to figure out how to pay for that. So we haven't figured that out yet. So we need to reform what we call the contribution side of that. Supreme Court's going to hand down at some point a ruling in the indecency case. If you ask the average person, what does the FCC do? They think that we just stand in front of a bank of TVs waiting for someone to get naked or swear.
That's a problem.
That's right.
That's not good. Don't like that.
That's actually a very small part of what we do, exactly. But it's important. So the Supreme Court is going to clarify what our authority is in that area, and we have over 1.5 million consumer complaints just on the indecency issue that have been sort of frozen waiting for the court to act. So we're going to then know what to do with those. So there's a lot we need to do.
Yeah, well, good luck. I mean, there's a tremendous path ahead of you, and I look forward to keeping up with everything you're working on this year.
Well, thank you so much for being such a good watchdog and keeping us honest.
Thank you.
Take care.